Some people don't leave your life completely. They just step away until your heart is strong enough to meet them again. If one name still feels soft instead of painful, your heart may already know something your mind is catching up to. Not every goodbye was meant to close a door. Some were meant to protect it. When someone is meant to return, your soul prepares long before they do. You don't miss them the way you used to. You remember them the way you needed to. Stay with me, because some connections don't come back loudly. They return quietly when you're finally ready. Take a slow breath. Let your heart settle for a moment. This isn't a video to watch casually. It's a video to feel. There are people who leave your life and fade quietly into the past. And then there are people who leave, but never truly go. No matter how much time passes, no matter how much healing you do, no matter how many new chapters you begin, something about them remains unfinished. You don't think about them every day, but when you do, it feels different, deeper, softer, familiar. That's because some connections are not meant to be erased. They're meant to be realigned. When someone is meant to re-enter your life, the signs don't shout. They whisper, they repeat, they wait until you're ready to notice. And when the timing is right, life begins to move quietly in their direction again. There are 7 signs that reveal when someone isn't just returning randomly, but returning on purpose. Sign 1. They keep returning to your thoughts when your heart is quiet. Not when you're busy, not when you're distracted, but when everything inside you finally goes still. In the quiet moments, late at night, early in the morning, or during pauses you didn't plan, they return. Not loudly, not dramatically, just gently, like a presence that never asked for permission to stay. You might wonder why now? Why after healing? Why after time? Why after you thought you were done? That's the curiosity of this sign. If someone is meant to re-enter your life, they don't show up in chaos. They show up in calm, when your heart is no longer desperate, when your wounds aren't bleeding anymore, when you're finally strong enough to remember them without falling apart. This isn't longing, it's recognition. Your heart isn't asking you to chase them, it's asking you to notice, because memories that return without pain are not trying to reopen wounds. They're checking if the door is unlocked. And if thinking of them now feels different than it did before, softer, clearer, more grounded, that's not coincidence. That's the first sign. Some people return to your thoughts not because you miss who they were, but because you're finally ready for who you both have become. Sign 2. Life keeps creating small, impossible coincidences around them. You're not searching for them, you're not asking the universe for signs, and yet they keep appearing. Their name comes up in conversations that had nothing to do with them. A song reminds you of a moment you thought you'd forgotten. A place, a date, a random detail suddenly points back to them, softly, insistently. These aren't loud miracles, they're quiet alignments. When someone is meant to re-enter your life, reality starts nudging you instead of forcing you. Not enough to overwhelm you, just enough to make you pause and think, that's strange. And the strange part isn't that they appear, it's how natural it feels when they do. Your heart doesn't race with anxiety anymore. It doesn't ache the way it once did. It simply notices that's important. Because coincidences that arrive when you're calm are not meant to pull you back. They're meant to check your readiness. They ask one silent question: can you hold this connection differently now? Life doesn't repeat patterns to trap you. It repeats them to see if you've grown. If the reminders feel gentle instead of painful, if they spark curiosity instead of fear, that's a sign the connection isn't circling back randomly. It's being reintroduced, carefully, deliberately, and on time. Sign 3. The pain connected to them has softened into understanding. There was a time when thinking about them hurt. Your chest tightened, your thoughts spiraled, your heart remembered wounds before memories. But now, it's different. The pain no longer stings the same way. What once felt sharp now feels quiet. What once felt heavy now feels reflective. That change didn't happen by accident. When someone is meant to re-enter your life, the pain attached to them transforms before they do. You stop replaying what went wrong and start understanding why it happened. The anger fades, the blame loosens its grip, and in its place comes clarity. You don't excuse the past, you understand it. That's growth. Your heart no longer asks, "Why did this hurt me?" It asks, "What did this teach me?" And that question changes everything. If you can think about them now without needing closure, without craving an apology, without wishing things were different, that's a sign your heart has healed enough to meet them again, not as who you were, but as who you've become. Re-entry only happens when both souls can arrive without reopening old wounds. And if the memory feels peaceful now, that peace may be preparing the ground for something new. Sign 4. You've stopped trying to control the outcome with them. There was a time when you wanted answers, a message, a sign, a clear ending or a clear return. But now, you don't chase either. You're no longer trying to force a reunion. You're no longer afraid of one either. You've released the need to control how, or if, they come back. And that shift is everything. When someone is meant to re-enter your life, control dissolves before connection returns. Your heart stops gripping the future. You stop rehearsing conversations that haven't happened. You stop bargaining with time. Instead, you trust, not in the sense of waiting, but in the sense of allowing. You've made peace with the idea that if they return, it will be honest, and if they don't, you'll still be whole. That neutrality isn't indifference, it's readiness. Because real alignment doesn't come from wanting something badly. It comes from being able to receive it without losing yourself. If you can imagine them re-entering your life without expectations, without fear, without pressure, that's not an emotional detachment, that's emotional maturity. And maturity is the doorway through which true reconnections walk. Sign 5. You feel calm at the thought of seeing them again, not anxious. Imagine this for a moment. You run into them unexpectedly, or they message you out of the blue, or their name appears on your phone again, and instead of panicking, instead of your heart racing or your chest tightening, you feel calm. That calmness matters more than you think. When someone is not meant to re-enter your life, the thought of them brings anxiety. Your body braces for pain. Your mind prepares defenses. Your heart remembers wounds. But when someone is meant to return, your nervous system relaxes first. You don't need to rehearse what you'd say. You don't feel the urge to impress or protect yourself. You simply feel steady. That doesn't mean you want them back desperately. It means your heart trusts itself now. Calm is the body's way of saying, I'm no longer in danger here. And that's important, because true reconnections don't begin with intensity, they begin with safety. If the idea of seeing them again feels grounded instead of overwhelming, if your heart feels open rather than guarded, that's not emotional attachment, that's readiness. Sometimes the clearest sign isn't excitement, it's peace. Sign 6. You're no longer the same person who let them go. This sign is subtle, but powerful. You've changed. Not in dramatic ways that everyone can see, but in quiet ways that matter. You respond differently now. You understand yourself more deeply. You've learned where your boundaries live, what you deserve, and what you will no longer abandon yourself for. And because of that, the connection feels different too. When someone is meant to re-enter your life, they don't return to the old version of you. They return to someone wiser, steadier, more rooted, someone who doesn't repeat patterns unconsciously. You don't feel the urge to prove yourself anymore. You don't feel the need to shrink or overgive. You don't fear losing them the way you once did. That growth didn't happen for nothing. Life rarely brings people back until you're strong enough to meet them without losing yourself again. Until you can choose consciously instead of emotionally. Until you can love without forgetting who you are. If you sense that you'd handle things differently now, speak differently, listen differently, love differently, that's not just maturity, that's preparation. And sometimes the reason someone hasn't returned yet is because you were still becoming the person who could receive them properly. Sign 7. You feel ready to meet them as equals, not as needs. This is the quietest sign and the most telling. You no longer imagine them as someone who will save you. You no longer see them as the missing piece to your happiness. You don't need them to fill a space that once felt empty. Instead, you feel whole, and from that wholeness, something changes. You feel ready to meet them eye to eye, not heart to heart out of longing, but soul to soul out of choice. You don't need reassurance from them to feel secure. You don't need their return to validate your worth. That's important, because real reconnections don't happen when one person is waiting to be completed. They happen when both people arrive complete, able to give, not grasp. If they were to re-enter your life now, it wouldn't be to fix something broken. It would be to build something honest. You feel capable of saying yes, and just as capable of saying no. You trust yourself either way. That balance is rare, and it's exactly what makes reconnection possible, because when love returns at the right time, it doesn't come back as a rescue, it comes back as a meeting. And if you feel that quiet readiness, without urgency, without fear, that's the final sign. You're not waiting anymore. You're available. If this video stayed with you until the end, trust that it wasn't a coincidence. Some messages find us only when we're ready to hear them. Not everyone who leaves is meant to return, but those who are meant to return don't come back to chaos. They come back to clarity. If someone has been circling your heart softly, without pain, without desperation, without longing that drains you, maybe it's because your heart has finally healed enough to recognize them clearly. Re-entry isn't about repeating the past. It's about meeting again with wisdom. And whether they come back tomorrow, months from now, or never at all, you've already gained something more important, yourself. Before you leave, pause for a moment and write this in the comments. If it's meant to return, let it return gently. Or, if this message brought peace to your heart, write, "I'm ready, no matter what." Sometimes the real sign isn't who comes back, it's who you've become.